Okay, children, now we'll begin with page number 56, the first para. We'll continue with the horse and two goats. The horse was nearly life size, molded out of clay, baked, burnt, and brightly colored, and reared its head proudly, prancing its forelegs in the air and flourishing its tail in a loop. So, Muni used to sit on that pedestal, children, where the statue of the horse and his warrior or the rider statue was placed. He himself sat on the pedestal of the horse statue for the rest of the day and watches the lorries and buses passing through. To feel connected to the larger world, he felt very proud of that he was almost connected to the larger world, because most of the lorries, then cars, vans, people from the town or the big cities, they were driving or passing through that highway, and they were going to different towns. The horse is made of weather-beaten clay, and it stands beside a warrior with scythe-like moustaches and bulging eyes and aquiline nose. That is the beak of a, you can imagine the beak of a parrot, that type of nose, children, aquiline nose. And scythe, I already have showed you in your presentation, children, that scythe like mustaches were there, and it just as if it just presented a funny type of figure. Now, the horse itself was said to have been as white as a dhobi washed sheet, and had on its back a cover of pure brocade of red and black lace. That is to say, children, you can imagine, children, that how the horse, that statue, would have looked with a white background. He was painted white. You can see they have given this phrase for him: dhobi washed sheet, pure white colored horse. And on it, at his back, they had painted or used its back a cover of pure brocade of red and black lace. So bright. That background was white, and on it was red and black. Then, so from a very far of distance, people could spot it out. But it was its irony that none in the village remembered the splendor, as no one noticed its existence. Nobody gave it so importance. Nobody ever thought about looking at it once. From even Muni, who spent all his waking hours at its foot, never bothered to look up. He never looked up at the statue, children, never. It was untouched even by the young vandals of the village. So all those young boys, children, naughty boys, notorious ones, who keep on roaming here and there in the village aimlessly. Those young lads, they too had never touched it, never saw it, because they were very famous for breaking the tree trunks with knives and tried to topple off milestones. They used to break the milestones also on that highway, and they used to carve or inscribe lewd designs on all the walls there. But they never ever gave any sort of glance at that statue. Beautiful statue, children, it was. This statue had been closer to the population of the village at one time. So it had at one time, when it was built, newly built, that square, that pedestal was built. At that time, people used to find it very extraordinary. They loved to see it and watch it, and they also thought, they felt proud that yes, our village is also very important, and this highway is so important that it has a landmark statue here, placed here. When this spot bordered the village, at that time, people of the village, they used to walk or they used to pass through it, and they used to, once might be they were giving a glance to it, that it beautified that place. Muni sat at the foot of the statue, watching his two goats graze in the arid soil among the cactus and lantana bushes. So Muni sat there and he kept on watching. First of all, he used to watch the road and wait for the appropriate time to head towards his home. He kept on noticing the lorries and all, and he sat and kept on watching his own goats. They were feeding upon or grazing upon the cactus and the lantana bushes, children. He looked at the sun. It had tilted westward, no doubt, so almost it was evening now. But it was not the time yet to go back home. So it was not at all early evening, children. So it was not at all the time to go back home. If he went too early, his wife would have no food for him. He knew his wife would be going to the big house to do some household work, and she will bring some or the other thing either to cook, or from that house itself, if they will give her, offer her some kind of prepared food, or some money they will lend her, and she'll be cooking or bringing something to cook. So it was not so late now, it was early, so that's why he never wanted to go back home. Also, he must give her time to cool off her temper, and then he knew that she was angry because nothing was there. So he thought that he should give some time to her to let her temper cool down and feel sympathetic about him. That throughout the day my husband is sitting there in the sun grazing the goats, and at least she will be, at least her temper will cool down, and then she would scrounge and manage to get some food, and she would manage to wash and manage to get some food, wash dishes, or go and do some or the other work and manage to get some food. He noticed now a new sort of vehicle coming down at full speed. He noticed that a new sort of vehicle was coming down at full speed. Suddenly he saw. And as Muni watches the road and waits for the appropriate time to head home, he notices a new sort of yellow vehicle that looked like both a motor car and bus coming from down the road and pulling over. A red-faced foreigner in khaki clothes gets down from the car and asks Muni if there is any gas station nearby. The man then notices the horse statue and exclaims, "Marvelous!" And suddenly he saw there was a foreigner who stood there right in front. He might be, children, he just, his motor car, suddenly it halted there. It looked like both a motor car and a bus. He used to be intrigued by the novelty of such spectacles. But of late work was going on at the source of the river on the mountain, and an assortment of people and traffic went past him. And he took it all casually and described to his wife later in the day everything he saw. So he sometimes on the road, children, some or the other kind of vehicles were passing, and he saw sometimes some new things, something new things he saw, and that he went and told his wife. He told as a story, he told his wife whatever something new happened on the road. He described to her later. Today, while he observed the yellow vehicle coming down, he was wondering how to describe it. Now he kept on wondering, how will I go home and describe everything about that yellow vehicle, when it sputtered and stopped in front of him. And the vehicle, it just made a loud noise and stopped right in front of him. A red-faced foreigner who had been driving it got down and went around it, stooping, looking and poking under the vehicle. Then he straightened himself up, looked at the dashboard, stared in Muni's direction and approached him. And finally the red-faced foreigner, he got down, and then he kept on stooping low and seeing and searching what has gone wrong with his vehicle. And then he straightened himself up and then looked at Muni's direction, and suddenly he approached him and he asked, "Excuse me," in English, children, "is there a gas station nearby, or do I have to wait until another car comes?" He suddenly looked up at the clay horse and cried, "Marvelous!" And then he got a glance of that horse and he shouted and cried, "Marvelous!" Without completing his sentence, Muni felt he should get up and run and cursed his age. He could not readily put his limbs into action. So Muni was helpless. He was almost 70, he couldn't run. And when he heard him speaking in that language, he felt very scared of, because children, he was wearing a khaki dress, and that resembled the dress of either a policeman or a soldier. So he wanted to run away from there. Now, this much for today, and then we'll continue with the lecture again, children, in our next video clip. Thank you.